Hi, I'm going to go through a very quick demonstration of installing Evolve. Firstly, we need to check the system meets the minimum requirements, and currently that's running on Windows 7, 8, Server 2003 and Server 2008. We also need to make sure it's got a quad core, has 4 GB of RAM and ideally 50 GB of hard disk drive. You don't necessarily need that in demo mode, but for a production release I suggest at least 50 GB of spare hard disk space. We also need to make sure we've got .NET 4.5 installed and we've got a modern browser. So first thing to do is to click on the control panel, so click Windows, Control Panel and then System. And this is Windows 7 I can see up here. I can also see I've got a quad-core processor, I've got 4 GB of RAM and a 64-bit operating system. Next I want to check that I've got .NET 4.5 installed, so if I go to the control panel again, Programs and Features, you'll notice that .NET Framework 4.5 is listed here. If it isn't, you can download that directly from the Microsoft website. We also need to check browsers, so we've got a modern browser. Google Chrome will always keep itself up to date, but if a customer is using IE and is insistent on using IE, we need to make sure that is IE 10. So if we load Internet Explorer here, I click on Tools, let that load a second, click on About, and here we are, we're running Internet Explorer 10. Next thing to do is to check that TAPI has been set up on this machine. So this is usually required by the dealer and not the installer. So again, in the control panel, we go to Phone and Modem options, like so. We click on Advanced and we notice there's an Avaya IP Office TAPI2 service provider. We click on Configure and we've got the switch IP address set up at the top. And what's important is we're set in third-party mode as opposed to single user mode. So third-party mode has the administrator password in there and the ACDQs options selected. And finally, we need to look at the TAPI side to see if it is actually functioning. So we have a tools download on Dropbox, which I'm just going to load up as we speak. And this takes me to a folder online with a few tools. And the tools in question here are the enum TAPI. So if I've also got a copy of this on my local drive, so I'm just going to mimic the same thing here. So if I run enum TAPI, in the TAPI devices list, I notice there are a number of IP Office phone devices. So if I see one or more IP Office phone devices in that list, I know that I'm connected via TAPI to the PBX, which is brilliant. So we're ready to progress with the installation. The installation is currently in the form of a zip file, so all I'm going to do is copy this zip file into the same location, and when we run the file, it's always good to run the file as administrator, just in case we don't have the correct privileges for this user. So if I right click on the exe file, run as administrator, the installation should begin. Click yes if there's any pop-ups as such, and it's a simple next installation. So next, install, and off we go. Now the installation is complete, we can begin to set up the system. So we've got an Evolve shortcut on the desktop. I'm going to load that up now. First time it connects, it's building some stuff in the background, so it is a little bit slow, but future starts, it will be near on instantaneous. So the default username is system and the default password lowercase q123. I'm not going to save the password. I'm going to click on configuration and sites, and as you notice I've already set up a site here. but if you click New Site, you'll get this pop up. And what's happening in the background is it's doing a broadcast for the PBX. So when we go to the PBX setting here, we choose the PBX in question, and it gives us the available PBXs. If you have multiple IP offices in the system or on your network, it will find all of them. And we click on the Options tab and just make sure Auto Start is selected. So I click Save, that is our installation complete. But obviously I want to make sure that we are making and receiving calls. So if I just make an internal call into the system, you can see we've got ringing, connected, and hung up. So there concludes the installation.